Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Today I have this 17 3/4 inch 4-jaw chuck. I'm going to take it all apart and clean it up. This chuck came with a Monarch 16W lathe. It's a lathe from the 1940s, or 1940 exactly, when mine was made. And it's pretty dang big. It's about 5,000 pounds. This is the 4-jaw that came with it. Mounted on it right now is a 3-jaw. I started with all the parts off of it and dumped them in the ultrasonic cleaner. That did a good job at loosening the grime and softening all the schmutz. A wire bristle brush, or brass brush in this case, that was hard to say, and Scotch-Brite proved my best friend, and it cleaned up very nicely. A little compressed air here gets them nice and dry, and the dry parts go in this container. I'm going to save them and hopefully not lose anything by the end. The mounting plate is an entirely machined piece, so I was careful to shine it up and polish it, but not mess with any of the dimensions, so no harsh abrasives there. Yeah, that's heavy, and I did have a thought I might drop it on my feet. A little degreaser or brake clean. I don't care about the paint or the finish. And a pressure washer. Those two spigots on the outside of the garage are pretty handy. One is actually hot water. This time of year, the wood burner is up and running, so all the hot water is provided thanks to burning wood. It's kind of cool, and maybe environmentally friendly. That might be a stretch, but works for me.
How's it going with the truck brakes and your outdoor projects?
That was my wife. And now back on the healing bench. The face cleaned up again with some WD-40 and Scotch-Brite and a whole lot of elbow grease. I really like how the gray cast iron looks once it's cleaned up. That kind of dark patina, even after scrubbing it, I think looks really cool. And I have no intention to make it bright white or shiny. And now back outside. There's some schmutz and other stuff in the internal corners of the casting, and that was tough to get at. The only way I could figure out was to use a sandblaster, and it worked wonderful. I was very careful to avoid any of the machine surfaces. And then I almost biff it. And now I'm just going to remove all of the blasting dust. A quick wipe down and some compressed air, and it's nice and clean. No abrasives left on it. Assembly took quite a while, and I ended up cutting the video a few times. Getting everything to fit together was kind of a challenge, and it turns out that everything seems to be indexed. So everything's got to go back in basically the same spot that it started in. Luckily, the jaws are labeled, so they match the ways. The screws don't really seem to matter, but those pins from the back were specific to each hole. When assembling, I was careful to use wood and brass. I didn't want to use any hardened steel or tools to deform or dent the chuck. That chunk of brass is actually a hose connector that is kind of junk anyway. Now it's completely junk. I'm just using a light oil just to make sure everything is smooth and stays rust-free. Though in the shop I have a dehumidifier running all the time, moisture will never be an issue. The shop is also heated year-round. Thanks again to that wood burner. It was very satisfying to assemble it, and this part on the back went nice and smooth. Since I'm new to metalworking, I don't quite understand how this locking mechanism works, but it looks like it'll hold really strong. Painting was a pretty simple ordeal. After all, it's all in the prep. This implement paint, which is quite thick, brushed on and made a nice thick coat. After it dried to a tack, I was able to go back and add a second coat, ensuring a nice even coverage. It's been 2 days since it's painted and it's still kind of tacky. It's dry to the touch, but it's not hard. I think this will form a nice, thick coat. Looks good. All cleaned up. Put some paint on it. Massey Ferguson gray. And there's the front now. Everything moves freely. There's no slop. 207 pounds of beautiful 4-jaw, freshly painted chuck. Thanks for watching, guys. Now back to the lathe.